President Biden is not a big fan. Former Democratic National Committee Chair Tom Perez is openly opposed. And elsewhere in the Democratic inner sanctum, disdain for Iowa's first-in-the-nation presidential caucus has been rising for years. Now the day of reckoning for Iowa Democrats is fast approaching, as the National Party starts to create a new calendar for the 2024 presidential nomination that could remove Iowa from its privileged position for the first time since 1972, when candidates started flocking to the state for an early jump on the race to the White House. The caucus's reputation has been damaged by high barriers to participation, a dearth of racial diversity, the rightward drift in the state's electorate and a leftward drift in the Democratic participants. The state party's inability to count the results in 2020 only deepened dismay in the party. Biden, who handily won the party's nomination in 2020, noted the lack of diversity in the caucus during the campaign. "It is what it is," he said of the calendar, and called his fourth-place finish in the state a gut punch. "We have to be honest with ourselves, and Iowa is not representative of America," Perez said Friday in an interview. "We need a primary process that is reflective of today's demographics in the Democratic Party." Biden, who handily won the party's nomination in 2020, noted the lack of diversity in the caucus during the campaign. "It is what it is," he said of the calendar, and called his fourth-place finish in the state a gut punch. "We have to be honest with ourselves, and Iowa is not representative of America," Perez said Friday in an interview. "We need a primary process that is reflective of today's demographics in the Democratic Party." Others in Biden's extended orbit have come to similar conclusions about the caucuses, for varied reasons. "It is not suited to normal people, people that actually have daily lives," South Carolina State Senator Dick Harpootlian, a former chairman of that state's Democratic Party and a longtime Biden ally, said of the caucuses. He described the laborious process of participating, over multiple hours, in person, on a weeknight, as far more restrictive than the requirements of a new voter law in Texas that Democrats universally oppose. The first step took place Saturday, when the party met to accept a slate of at-large members and committee assignments that had been put forward by senior Democratic officials, in consultation with Biden aides. The number coming from Delaware, Biden's home state, will bump to 5 from 1, and the number of members from Washington, D.C., will rise from 15 to 20, which has angered some state parties that are losing representation. A subgroup of those members, who sit on the Rules and Bylaws Committee, also will be confirmed. That group, little changed from the past cycle, has been charged with setting the calendar, with an expected decision as soon as the first half of next year, according to people involved. Another Democrat put Iowa's situation in even more stark terms. "Iowa had no friends before the 2020 race, or it had very few friends. And it certainly doesn't have any friends after the 202-0 race." In 2020, the Iowa caucuses kicked off the presidential nominating contest on February 3, after enjoying months of bus tours and advertising attention from the candidates. New Hampshire held the first primary on February 11, followed by two more racially diverse states, a caucus in Nevada and a primary in South Carolina. Leaders in Nevada, with the support of former Senate Majority Leader Harry M. Reid, recently changed state law to transition from a caucus to a primary and schedule the date on the first Tuesday in February in a bid to increase the state's importance. Representative James E. Clyburn, DSC, a longtime Biden ally, has like Reid been critical of the demographics of New Hampshire and Iowa. 91% of Democratic caucus goers in Iowa were white in 2020, according to entry polls. Among the possible solutions is a party ban on allowing convention delegates to be nominated in any early caucuses in the 2024 cycle. Perez has advocated allowing multiple states, possibly including South Carolina, Nevada and New Hampshire, to vote on the same day, forcing campaigns to split their early campaign resources more broadly in the early parts of their campaign. There remains broad concern about giving larger states too much say in the party's decision, as Democrats say they do want to allow for a process that encourages meeting with voters and gives less well-funded or known candidates a chance to win on their merits. A state law in Iowa requires the parties to hold their nominating caucuses at least 8 days before any other state caucus or primary, and the state law in New Hampshire requires that its primary be at least a week before any other state. Republicans, who control government in both states, have made clear that they plan to stick to tradition for their party in 2024. Iowa Republican Party Chair Jeff Kaufman has been put in charge of the Republican National Committee's calendar planning process for 2024, all but ensuring that the state remains first in the nation for the GOP. Former President Donald Trump has repeatedly voiced support for the state's role. Kaufman said in an interview that he is hoping to bring the Democrats along with him. Setting Iowa's first in the nation caucus has always been a bipartisan job, Kaufman said in an interview. Iowans note that the DNC can threaten state party leaders, and deny states that do not follow the rules representation at party conventions. But in the past that has not guaranteed cooperation, especially if candidates disregard the party rules as well. Iowa Democrats are nonetheless scrambling to make their case to the rest of the party, offering to change some of the procedures that complicate the caucus, including the requirement that candidates get at least 15% support in any single meeting to be viable. Those changes could cause problems with New Hampshire's Secretary of State, Bill Gardner, who has long threatened to jump Iowa in line if the state's process looks too much like a primary. The question is, what kind of lipstick can you put on the pig? How much can you make a caucus look like a primary, or vice versa, said one Iowa Democrat. There is no question that we have hard work to do, but Democrats across the country have hard work to do, said Wilburn, who also noted that Iowa boasts a growing immigrant population. The deck is not stacked against Iowa. One lingering stain on Iowa was its inability to count the results of the caucuses in 2020. A new system that recorded initial ballot preference exposed long-standing problems in the complicated math calculations involved in the party meetings, and a smartphone app designed to report the result failed to function as planned on caucus night. Iowa Party Chairman Troy Price resigned as a result of the debacle. One lingering stain on Iowa was its inability to count the results of the caucuses in 2020. A new system that recorded initial ballot preference exposed long-standing problems in the complicated math calculations involved in the party meetings, and a smartphone app designed to report the result failed to function as planned on caucus night. Iowa Party Chairman Troy Price resigned as a result of the debacle. The Iowa Democratic Party later commissioned a report on what went wrong, which placed blame on the Democratic National Committee for delaying the state party's ability to prepare for the caucuses and for adding a layer of supervision that contained its own coding errors, which delayed reporting. National party officials, meanwhile, blamed the bungle on the state party. Nagel also warned that if Biden backs away from Iowa, he would be breaking his past promises to keep supporting the state's position. Nagel said he spoke with Biden in 2008, during a car ride from the Waterloo airport, where Biden told him he would continue to support Iowa going first. The Biden campaign also signed a pledge, as a condition of speaking at the state's 2019 Liberty and Justice Dinner, promising to keep the Iowa caucuses first in the nation beyond 2020, according to a news release at the time from the Iowa Democratic Party.